Hey. Oh, there. We have an interesting day. So I think we should get started, and probably appropriate that we start with Pule. So I'd like to ask our BAE Vice Chair to give us a Pule to begin our day. Trustee Akaka.
If we can all bow our heads in prayer, e pule kako, e kia kua manaloa me ke keiki a me ka uhane he malele, e na umakua e na kini akua me na kupuna o kako pau. Mahalo anui yet again for bringing us together to better the conditions for our Native Hawaiian people, and that we may come together with open minds and open hearts and discussion and how we can work with what's in front of us, and that we may be guided through the light of our kupuna and you above. And we pray that everything that we do is done with mindfulness and aloha. Amama wanoa lele na pule lele vale aku. Amen.
Beautifully done, Mahalo. This meeting can be viewed via live stream on OHA's website at www.oha.org/livestream. If you would like to testify on any agenda item during the Zoom meeting, please raise your hand when that subject is announced. When called upon, please unmute your mic. You'll be given the ability to turn your camera on during your testimony. When you're finished, please mute your mic. We're recording today's meeting for the sole purpose of producing written minutes, which will become the official record of this meeting. In order to eliminate any background noise, which can affect the quality of the sound and making it difficult to hear, please mute your devices' microphones until you're called on to speak. At the prompting of the chair, BAE staff will do a roll call to determine quorum at the beginning of every meeting. 5 board members present in person and virtually constitutes a quorum. Roll call votes will also be called to determine the board's position on committee matters. A simple majority of committee members present will constitute a position on any matters that require a vote of its members. Trustees who are joining us by Zoom, please enable your cameras for the duration of the meeting if you're able to do so. All other OHA staffers, please enable your cameras when you need to address the committee members. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand. When recognized by the committee chair, please proceed to speak. Lower your hand and mute your mic when you're done. For those trustees joining us remotely from a private location such as your home, please state the name of any person 18 years of age or older who's present with you at your location. Trustees, if you have to leave the meeting, please inform the chair by announcing you're leaving the meeting. Okay? All right. Got enough to start. Let's do some business. The May 14th, 2025 meeting of the Committee on Beneficiary Advocacy and Empowerment is being called to order. The time now is 9:06. Leanne, please call the roll for attendance.
Trustee Ahuna.
Yo.
Trustee Akaka.
Yo.
Trustee Akina. Not present. Trustee Alapa.
Present.
Trustee Kahele.
Present.
Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Souza.
Yo.
Trustee Waihe'e.
Present.
Chair Galutaria.
Yo.
8 yes votes constitutes a quorum.
Very good. Mahalo, members. Joining the trustees today is, Stacy and Kehala are much lovelier than you. That's okay. Everett,
I agree, Chair.
would you please introduce the staff?
Thank you, Chair Galataria. Good morning, trustees. I am Everett Ota, Interim General Counsel for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, standing in for Kehaulani Pu'u, our Chief Operating Officer, who is unexpectedly delayed this morning. But I will be introducing our administration staff joining us today, both in person and online. We have Chief Financial Officer Ramona Hink, Interim Director of Land Assets Lori Walker, Director of Community Engagement Lisa Von Sakona, Beneficiary Services Manager Lee McKella, Ancestry Verification Specialist Lucy Meyer, IT System Engineer and Administrator Daniel Santos, as well as Arlene Aguinaldo. Thank you, Chair.
Mahalo, Everett. Thank you. And also aloha to everybody here in the room who are visiting us for the first, second, third time, and to all of our staff and to everyone virtually. Welcome to the Committee on Beneficiary Advocacy and Empowerment. Next, we'll be moving to the first item on the agenda. Actually, the minutes, members, for April 2nd will be deferred for today. So let's proceed by reviewing our public policy guidelines and then move to the new business, okay? Public testimony should be limited to matters listed on today's meeting agenda. If issues are raised about items not on this agenda, you will be called out of order. I will direct you to limit your testimony to the item currently being considered on the agenda. Your name will be called, your microphone will be unmuted, and you will testify. If you're not audible when called upon, you'll be muted and the next testifier called. Please state your name, organization, if applicable, agenda item you'll be speaking on. Oral testimony will be limited to 5 minutes. A timer will be on the screen to count down. Your mic will be automatically muted once you've completed your oral testimony or your allotted time for testimony expires. Okay. Members, let's proceed to a rather efficient, shall we say, agenda because we have a lot of business to do in meeting number 3. And we're taking what we usually put in order with the Land Management Committee going second today, and we're going to finish off our day with Budget and Finance, okay? Today, we will have 2 items on this agenda, and they're informational in nature. Our advocacy team is on vacation, Leonala's on vacation, so she'll come back and give us some highlights of the past session that's just concluded. But for now, we'll move into 2 informational briefings, okay? The first one is very, very important in the sense that since this is about beneficiary advocacy and empowerment, it's important that we learn as much as we can about our own Hawaiian Registry program and the value proposition that comes along with it. I'm very proud to, and I'm not putting you as anybody on the spot, but I'm holding up my card. Okay. Now, the next time we meet next month, I would want everybody to be raising their card. Oh, can you get one of these? You're going to learn right now. Okay.
Very easy.
Very, very easy. So, Ilima, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and take over with your report, okay?
Mahalo. Aloha kakayaka yakako. So quick update on the registry and progress that has been done since our last information regarding the program. Mahalo to our 2 trustees who came and got their registry done. I expect to see everybody else following. So right now we had put into our budget to get more machines. And the last time I spoke to you guys, we wanted at least 2 more. As I did homework and we got some invoices done, we will be getting a machine for each island. So we added 3 more machines. We also, I'll be meeting with JEPCO next week, Tuesday, because they do have a portable machine. So the hope is to purchase 2 of those, one to go to Hilo, Hawaii Island, so he can travel with that, and the other one to stay here on Oahu for the larger events, conventions, whatever, if you guys want to take it to the bigger conventions. So that's going to be the purpose for that. We will be stationing 2 permanent machines here and then 1 on each island. So each island will be able to service their own community. It doesn't have to be transferred over to Honolulu to be completed. So we will be able to make a couple purchases now before the new fiscal year. Now the programming, that's getting updated, and we're looking into getting that updated by the new fiscal year. So with the expiration being removed, that's going to start all in July. And then recently we had a meeting. Poni Askew allowed me to jump into her meeting with the Native Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce. So the executive director, Andrew Rosen, so he is in support of trying to help us boost the value of the card. So because of our low staff and being able to think, we didn't want to go ahead into the businesses and, like how you were talking about like the discount. So he's gonna start, we're looking at doing it where they can fast track membership. So business people to join the commerce, and I guess there's certain steps that they have to take with this card, they can get fast tracked over. So we're gonna start with that as we can add on to our staffing, which we have a position open right now that we're gonna start interviewing for. We can hopefully dedicate 1 or 2 people specifically to take care of the HRP verification process here on Oahu. And then eventually again, the outer islands take care of their own. The discontinuing of the annual process, so that's gonna happen in July, like I said. We edited our application. So comms took it, they made the edits. We need to get that over to general counsel to approve. And we did add on the question of, are they registered to vote in Hawaii? So that is, and we took out some things that was outdated and not valid anymore. So once that is done and approved, we do want to eventually have that online. So comms is prepared when they can to put it online, where you can just go online, fill it out, and send it directly to our HIREC inboxes, which is where we receive all the applications. So they won't have to go on, print it up, write it, and send it in. They'll be able to just do it right there on the website.
Ilima,
Yes,
I want this to be a fluid conversation, if you don't mind.
of course.
Uh, The value proposition of being on the Hawaiian Registry is what we want to
Yes.
kind of outline today. So average Hawaiian, how old is the youngest person that can sign up
Birth,
for, pardon me,
birth.
can sign up?
Parents register their babies, and then they
So-
keep.
So my 5-year-old granddaughter can be on the
Yes.
registry?
Yes.
Okay. How many do we have registered right now?
The last, I believe we saw, I want to say 22,000 in that range. Yeah, not enough.
Pardon me, what was that?
About
22,000?
22,000, yeah.
That's,
Mhm.
yeah, we got to get it up.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. In a perfect world, what would it take for you to be successful? How many staffers do you think that part of OHA?
Dedicated
Yeah.
strictly to, well, now it's because we're gonna get a machine on each island, that's gonna change. At one time, I did want us dedicated staff here to do that, but that was with just one machine here. So I think with each island having their own, to have 1 or 2 dedicated here to manage and make sure everybody else's documents are in line. That's so 2.
2.
Short answer, yes.
And you have how many now?
Right now, we have nobody dedicated to HRP. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have one unofficially that takes care of processing. And so there's a workflow. One will process initially, and then the back end goes to another BSA where they do the printing, make sure it's logged in, and then mailed out. And then what we're doing with the inbox, because we have the inbox, we have mail, and then we have walk-ins. So each island have their walk-ins. The mail comes here. So the inbox we send out to each of the BSAs to process there. Maui has a machine, so Maui's been processing, completed, and mailing it out himself. The other islands are just assisting with the initial process, verifying, jotting down the information, and then sending it back to Honolulu for them to just print up and log.
Members, any questions so far? Trustee Hulu?
Thank you. This is a kind of way out question, but I was thinking if this process could also include registering our people for voting, those of our that of age, that would be really helpful to our Hawaiian people. That they can do both at the same time. I just wondered if that was a possibility to get
Yes.
the city and county to license us. What do they do to?
Actually, it's just the, we
Regis-
have the pamphlets in each of our offices. So what we can do is we can start talking about it. Like when they come in for that, we can also, are you registered to vote? We have this because it's a simple application. So we can be more focused on that if that'll help. Because we
be
I
more
think we could
proactive?
provide information to them, like, because we wouldn't have authority to actually intake their application or anything, so that might be that would require some agreement, conversation with,
County.
yeah, with the state and city and county. But what would be within our purview would be to hold some, voter registration forms, hand it out, encourage our
Mm.
beneficiaries to vote. I think that's like something we could do now. And then maybe longer term, if we want to be a voter registration center or something, that would take some time and discussion.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Itself provides a provision for you to mail back your registration at no postage cost. So it's rather easy. We want to encourage our beneficiaries to get involved civically. I think down the line, what would be a perfect day is for us to identify all Native Hawaiian voters in every district, both in the legislature, both in the House and in the Senate. So the legislators know that we've got some robust activity. Yeah.
Correct.
Anybody else? Trustee Okada?
It was just simply to kind of further what was explained regarding the voter
Okay.
registration that you can share the pamphlet. However, for instance, if the person is a candidate, that's even just handing it, it might be something maybe controversial. So it's better to have people that are not candidates do that kind of work. But I think that's something that we can talk with the Office of Elections to see what the updated laws are regarding that so that we can collaborate as we can and maybe closer in time as it makes sense that we can revisit that.
For that, thank you. And next year is election year, so there's a lot to do. Trustee Kaya?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for putting this on the agenda. I think it's really important, having just come from Dartmouth College in Hanover and briefing bunch of aspiring next generation Hawaiian leaders going to school way up there in New Hampshire, Kanakas, about the Hawaiian Registry program and how OHA can help them when they finish higher education and come home. I just a couple comments and then a question. So the renewal, which has always been a point of contention, when do you expect that to be gone? Is that with the new standard operating
yes, with
procedures
the
update?
upgrade of the program.
Any timeline on when that will happen?
We're hoping for July.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, perfect. So July, no renewal requirement.
Mhm.
Looking just at the website, I would suggest like re-updating the form, adding like a date on the bottom of it to like indicate that it's current 2025. There's an opt-in section that refers to the Native Hawaiian Royal Commission.
Yeah,
don't
that's
know
off.
if
It came off.
It's okay.
Yes.
Well, it's
How
still on the
comes-
form, so I just
Yeah,
letting
so
you know.
comms didn't put the new one on
Okay.
yet. That needs to go through legal first.
Okay,
Yeah.
so okay, and then finally, the portable machines you're referring to, like how portable is that? Like, can we take that and stand that up in a remote satellite location on the Big Island?
Yes, that's
Okay.
that's the intention. So we are actually gonna meet with the representative next week, Tuesday, to see it. We wanna
Okay.
see how portable it is, but he said he does have a portable machine. So the hope is to get two, one for the Hawaii Island and then one to leave here for the bigger events that happens here
Yeah.
that we can take, yeah.
So one suggestion, Chair, is if OHA is going to participate in the October CNHA convention, we should work together with Kuhio Lewis and his team.
Yes.
that machine should go there. If we can let everyone know we're doing Native Hawaiian Registry, they can bring their birth certificate with them.
Yes.
And we can be pumping out red cards all week long
Yeah,
If,
that is the
uh,
hope.
if CNHA is, would be open to that. And then finally, here's a question for our Ho'akoakoa sponsorships. When the applicants apply, like our AHO program, do we or do we not, or why don't we require them to be Hawaiian Registry Program, card-holding members when they apply for Ho'akoakoa sponsorships? At least a signatory on the application. Have you guys thought about including that?
Have not thought about it, and it's not a requirement at this time. But
That's a way,
we can
you know,
explore
if
that.
people want resources from OHA, we want to support them, register with the program, just like AHO.
Loans is another
Kind of
one.
like Kamehameha schools, right? You can't get anything at Kamehameha without being in the Ho'olu Hawaiian Data Registry database. Everything that we do, sponsorships, AHO, Ho'akoakoa, grants, we should be registering people all day long. Thanks, Chair.
Mahalo. And by the way, it was rather exciting a couple of weeks ago when I met two young couples who were looking to register. They were walking around the building. And they knew that they had to be a part of the registry in order to apply for the AHO program. So I think the value proposition package is important for us to take a look at. Because once we start to really promote this, and we're going to talk to comms about doing that, we want to know what the value of being a registrant is. Okay, so that's what we want to do. Trustee Akaka?
Mahalo. I agree with being prepared and that we can collaborate with the CNHA conference coming up. My mind is on that same thought, and also with the upcoming Civic Club Convention. I believe that's going to be in
Yes.
Kona. So to be able to collaborate with the leaders there so that they can let their different civic clubs know ahead of time to bring that palapala and so forth. And I think with any of our legacy sponsorships or the different big events that we're a part of, that we can do that as well. But if, I don't know if it was mentioned earlier regarding like a QR code that we can put out, but I think this is something we can explore with TSAs, whether it's just simply through social media or on the TV or when we have a spot on the main channels. Mahalo.
Does the diaspora also sign up?
Yes.
So,
Actually, we have more from the continent that applies for this than we have people in Hawaii.
oh,
It's
really?
a little bit more valuable to them out there because they can tap into the indigenous funds for schooling. So I've been encouraging a lot of our people that our kids are graduating, going over to the continent for school to have their kids apply and be registered with us. And, you know, for other things, there's a medical assistance that they can get from that, those funds. So it's valuable for them there.
Does a value proposition include a medical plan of some kind?
Not a medical plan, but they can get, um, and it's more like on the reservations, where they get medical care. They can, yeah,
Okay, we should flesh that out because, and no pun intended, being
Right.
medical stuff, flesh it out. But we did have the medical school sitting in front of us a couple of weeks back. And so there should be something that there's a connectivity there
right.
on how we can offer a limited amount of healthcare if they're registrants. What that means, I don't know, maybe just one particular appointment, a health appointment of
Right.
some kind.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay. Chair Kaile?
Final comment. You know, we've talked about this, Chair, in our board suite, in our ONI meetings. You know, just like we talked about, encouraging all of our board staff that are of Native Hawaiian ancestry to get registered. I would also encourage all OHA employees to get registered, and if they're of Native Hawaiian ancestry, or some that may not be, but they marry Kanaka and their keiki are of Native Hawaiian ancestry, we like to do that. And I guess my last question, I would be remiss if I didn't ask a question that my 11-year-old daughter, Iolana, asked me the other day when she saw my red card, and I guess this is for you, Elima. She wanted a red ohia lehua. Is it possible?
You know, We might have to change the background of the card.
Or
Yellow card
okay.
with red, who knows?
So no, right now, no carrot. Mele mele is all we got.
Mele mele,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Who knows? Maybe we can get a different color red.
Okay, Chair, thank you.
Yeah. Well, if that's the only no we're getting about this, we're on a good track.
Yes.
Trustees, any other questions for Ilima? Okay, Gail?
I just wanted to comment that, so we have included purchase of the new machines in our 26-27 budget request, but we are looking at, using some positive variance in this quarter, so we could purchase earlier. I just wanted to share that. And then also, what you will also see coming up in our budget request is, initiative to, and it's in our advocacy budget, because I know we've heard you talk about getting our people out there to vote. And so there is, it hasn't been fully designed or fleshed out, but we did include some budget to do some kind of campaign to get our Pōhakuloa out to vote and increase civic engagement. So I just wanted to share that with you.
It's good to hear. You know, one of the, not, voting is the franchise that everybody has. Because not everybody's going to be a political leader or a public servant. But that's also a part of the end game. We want to encourage our young Hawaiians to get into civic engagement. And perhaps, you know, they'll become leaders in the legislature that we can depend on as well as we move our mission forward too. I don't want to stop you from your presentation, but is,
No, that was the updates that we have.
okay, we'll be coming back to you, you know, every few months for updates. We know the bandwidth is not there yet for us to go full blown on it, but as we get closer, then we're going to want to turn it over to comms to make sure that we beat the drums to get people on the list, okay?
Definitely.
All right. Any other questions, members? Oh, yeah, Chair Hulu.
I'd just like to say with the machine in Maui, we were able to successfully sign up the fire victims that are Hawaiians. And it's been very helpful to them to know what OHA is offering as well, and the funds that we were able to give to them as a result of the board's approval of that money. So it was really, really, I mean, I really pressured administration to get a machine to Maui because I thought it was so important. And it did work. Now, Roy is really a pro at the machine, and he's able to take the Honolulu applications and process it for administration, send it back, right?
Yes. I think he processed about over 100 cards in less than a month. Yeah, which is huge because it's a process.
What's the
of
average
verification.
turnaround time?
Average turnaround time, we say 2 to 3 weeks.
All right. Okay, very
And
good.
yeah, if it's simple, cut and dry, it's a quicker process. But when we have to look into birth certificates of parents and grandparents, or there's adoptions and all these different things that we gotta get other documents, it takes longer.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I know the timeline, that's very important to note as well on our website, and put that out to comms, because especially if they're applying, getting this card to apply for the whole program or something like that, that delays them about 2 to 3 weeks. So just want to make note of that.
And we've been delayed,
Yeah,
but yeah.
so they can prepare ahead of time, our
Yes.
beneficiaries. So thank you.
Yeah, an announcement, I think when we launch something new, the initial announcement of you need to be registered would help, because people found out about it. So like you said, you saw this couple come in, they knew before they even applied for AHO, they needed to do the card. So that's what they were doing. And it makes it faster for them to be registered for AHO and get sent up.
Very good. Well, lastly, though, before you leave the table, do we have any testifiers on this particular matter?
No testifies,
No
Chair.
testifiers. Okay, with no other questions, thank you so much, Ilima. See you in a couple of months, okay? Okay, very good. Let's proceed to item number 3B. This is, members, an informational briefing by our Chief of Staff on the environmental impact statement for the Army Training Land Retention at Pōhakuloa Training Area on Hawaii Island. This is very, very important for us to understand because we've, and we will be taking continuous positions on this as it makes its way. So Summer, you got the floor. Firstly, do we have any testifiers on this?
No
Okay,
testifiers.
very good. Okay, Summer, please. Now turn on your mic.
Okay, hear me? Perfect. I want to first thank our Chief Policy Advocate, Lena Alalei, who I am standing in her place for today, but who did the heavy lifting on the advocacy around the Pōhakuloa FEIS hearing together with her team. And I also have here today in the room, in case we have any really specific detailed questions about their effort, Kamakana Ferreira. Basically, on Friday, May 9th, the Hawaii Board of Land and Natural Resources made a historic decision rejecting the U.S. Army's final environmental impact statement for its proposed retention for up to 22,750 acres of state-owned lands at Pōhakuloa Training in Hawaii Island, which was connected to a lease set to expire in 2029, and for which it has paid $1 for the entirety of that 65-year lease term, or soon to be expiring term in 2029. The area is the footprint of that area, which is part of a larger U.S. military installation, is approximately 132,000 acres and arguably the largest military footprint in the Pacific. For decades, the Army's used that 23,000 acres for military exercises on land that is actually conservation district use zoned. And has deep cultural significance for Native Hawaiians. And while the current lease agreement is set to expire in a few years, the Army's proposal to either renew the lease or acquire that land in fee interest, and we're talking specifically about the state-owned lands, requires or is subject to environmental review, commonly known as HEPA, or the Hawaii Environmental Policy Act, and articulated in HRS 343 before that approval can happen. So the board's rejection on May 9th effectively halted the Army from proceeding in that vein. And the Army must now either revise its environmental impact statement to include sort of the necessary environmental points and concerns and public comments that were flagged during that hearing. The Army also has some other alternatives that I'll get to at the sort of the conclusion of this background, but the decision's a crucial step in the Army's proposed lease renewal and ensures that this process doesn't bypass important environmental concerns, important cultural concerns, things that are actually mandated by our own state constitution. So it's an affirmation of all of the really important state obligations that also speak to our Aloha Aina values, as well as Native Hawaiian cultural and customary practices. The board's rejection, just to get it into the weeds a little bit, was informed by a three-part inquiry. And that inquiry determines whether or not the FEIS is accepted as is or not accepted, because it has some substantive deficiencies, right? So the three-part inquiry that the board went through included, one, an assessment of whether procedures related to consultation, to the environmental review, to preparation, to adequate public notice, to the submission of that document itself, which is 3 volumes large. We have a hard copy of that in Chair's office at our request, at Chair's request, so that we have it on hand. But that was determined to be mostly satisfactory. There was one procedural or ministerial deficiency that was deemed not critical, not fatal. And so it passed that level of inquiry, though the second and third levels of inquiry were more problematic. The second included content requirements that were satisfied or not satisfied, and the board, with the support of its staff, determined that the issues were that there was not a full declaration of environmental impacts, or a full declaration and disclosure, I should say, of foreseeable or reasonably foreseeable impacts. And data analysis not commensurate with the level of that impact. And then the third criteria that they looked at was whether or not the FEIS actually meaningfully responded to the comments that were collected post the draft EIS. And the staff determined that it was unsatisfactory in a number of key areas. OHA, for its part, submitted testimony, 7-page testimony, really thoughtful and particularly like joined in the chorus of all of those deficiencies that were flagged. And then also added to that consideration the fact that one, the Army hadn't fully examined or spoke to its desire to seek fee interests of these lands instead of continuing its leasehold status. And as you can imagine, our stakeholder interests in these lands, having the character of being ceded in former Crown and Hawaiian Kingdom lands, with proceeds that we are entitled to collect on behalf of the Native Hawaiian community and then use that to better serve their interests, was of important concern. The method and the term of the retention of these lands were not specifically or adequately discussed and addressed. The Army chose to focus on a 10-year alternative option, not anything in between 10 and 65 years that could potentially mitigate some of the impacts to these lands while in their possession. And they didn't speak to the irreversible and irretrievable commitment that changing the status of these lands from leasehold to fee interest is tantamount to permanent alienation, right? And we also, as OHA, as an agency, have an interest in ensuring that when those things happen that we're consulted on, that the public is absolutely made aware of the foreseeable consequences of that kind of conversion, and that there is robust discussion and negotiation. So good on OHA for flagging that, good on the advocacy team. And then the one last thing was that fair market value considerations aren't the only consideration that should weigh in determining how these lands are held going forward. There are other measures that should also encompass whether or not that includes like long-term community benefit plans, the use of the agency or the government providing for governance kind of road pathways, I should say, and other measures informed by beneficiary input need to be more fully explored. They also didn't, they being the Army, also didn't disclose sufficiently their compliance with cleanup or process as they are continuing their use. And it was OHA's position, as was many of the public comments, that this cleanup needs to happen as an ongoing process, not just at the end of the lease term, which is essentially what they were pushing their timeline back to. And so that was another flag. And then the last was the fact that there has been not so much transparency or candor around the disclosure and findings of iwi kupuna and sort of the cultural impacts that have been affected by these military training exercises, and the need to make that requirement that is actually enforced. So HOA's comments together with the staff's comments together with over 1,500 or 1,300, I should say, written testimony submitted, and hours of verbal hearings and comments. The BLNR voted 5-2 to reject the EIS and included a long list of recommendations. I'm going to go through them really quickly that were also subject to any revised EIS that comes before the board in the future, to include a kapakai analysis, a consultation log that gives the conflicting accounts of which cultural experts are consulted to ensure that we are meeting or the Army's meeting with the appropriate subject matter experts, people who have ties to these lands. Additionally, a complete biological opinion to assess potential impacts to endangered species, an inventory of all of the unexploded ordinances and depleted uranium, a greenhouse gas data inventory and analysis of cumulative impacts, a detailed inventory of the disposition of future iwi kupuna and moipu findings, a clarification of whether section 106 is required by law, a justification for narrowing the area of influence to only state lands, or an assessment for impacts for the total impacted area, more serious consideration for the no action alternative, so that becomes a little more robust in its analysis. And then a consideration of conservation district use language, land use regulations. In conclusion, the chair issued a statement that I think is worth reading, and sort of help to summarize OHA's takeaway from this event. And it was that the Office of Hawaiian Affairs supports the Board of Land and Natural Resources' decision to reject the FEIS for the proposed retention of state lands at Pōhakuloa training area, and that this decision reflects a thorough review of the document's legal, environmental, and cultural deficiencies, many of which OHA and others identified in public testimony. And as the state and Hawaii's congressional delegation consider next steps, that OHA remains steadfast in its commitment to ensuring that any future course of action honors the unique legal status of these lands and the trust obligations they carry, that these lands are not ordinary, that they're part of our unrelinquished legacy, and that OHA will continue to prioritize protecting the rights and interests of the Native Hawaiian people and preserving the integrity of the public land trust. And in terms of next steps, the Army has the opportunity again to revise its EIS and comply with the recommendations made by the BLNR, which will include a 30-day comment period, which then triggers that kapa'akai analysis as well, which provides the public, OHA, all of the stakeholders who have really coalesced. I think another takeaway from the event was the high capacity of our lahui and our community to mobilize in very short order, and not just to, present solid, solidified front, but to also get educated in advance of these kinds of hearings with testimony that is meaningful, with testimony that speaks directly to the issue at hand, and then aligning themselves, finding other coalitions and alliances to build with. I want to compliment that OHA did work in tandem. They were invited into these spaces to work alongside Sierra Club of Hawaii, Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, Earth Justice, a lot of grassroots community organizations. That is also a commendation to the kind of pilina and relationship building that your advocacy team, that your beneficiary services folks that are working hard to cultivate trust in the community, to be the kind of leader or agency to which they come and find solidarity with. And there is a number of further discussions about potential opportunities to be responsive to the needs that were expressed that day, but then to also think creatively as well about how to mitigate these harms in ways that go and extend beyond just the Pōhakuloa training area. The Army's footprint in our islands is profound, and it exceeds the 22,000 acres. It impacts our housing decisions. It impacts our inventory, the subsidized inflation that brings our rental prices really sky high. Our diaspora of Native Hawaiians who are living elsewhere, not even in the state, feel the impact of that footprint here. So there are many ways in which to address this and other issues related to the Pōhakuloa matter. But for now, take any questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the report. Members, Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo, sorry for sharing that. I want to thank everyone that was involved in providing the readiness and the testimony and the information. I think Lena Ala was excellent in her testimony. All the points that were stated by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs were not stated in any other testimony. And I think it gave a really good rebuttal to the military's mana'o in terms of what compliance looks like, and in terms of their kuleana with archaeological sites and surveying and so forth, and that a pedestrian survey is not sufficient. There needs to be something more, and that the flow specifically because of the natural formation of the outflow, that there's going to be lava tubes oftentimes, which make room for our EV to be there. So there needs to be that consideration as well. One of the thoughts through the many, many hours from morning till evening time, that as the testimonies went on, I kept thinking, I think it would be good for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs to have a site visit there as we approach our time on Hawaii Island. So I think it would be good for us to visit conservation areas and as well as certain historical sites that we should be made aware of and seeing the type of activities that they're involved in.
Perhaps Chair Kahele can make that happen. When we do make it to the island, you want to respond to any of that?
Sorry, one
Sam?
more thing. I just
No?
want to share one more thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I really want to mahalo Kai Markell as well for his contributions in this, and for Kamakana being there alongside Lena Ala. That was a concern of mine that I had to ensure that we had proper legal background as well as compliance, and I feel that we had that. So mahalo nui.
Yeah, absolutely. I kako'o that. Mahalo. Thank you.
Yeah, mahalo for that. Any other questions or comments, trustees, on this matter? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Dan. Yeah, Trustee Ahuna?
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to say, thank you for the team for that thorough response to that EIS. Thank you so much. And just the reporting was just amazing for me. And I just want to thank the team for the amazing, I mean, from beginning to end, how you responded to how you gave the report. I mean, fabulous. So thank you to everyone.
Mahalo, Trustee. Trustee Akina?
Mahalo, Chair. I also wanted to express my mahalo to the entire team, to Chair Kahele, to our CEO, and to the administration on an excellent response. There are two things about it that I think we can feel very proud of. First, OHA's response shows that we stand our ground as fiduciaries on the issues for which we are responsible to the Hawaiian people and to all the people of Hawaii. Secondly, the tone of our response is not only professional, but very well-mannered, reasonable, and something that shows that we're not closing doors. We can remain open to kokua with the United States Army. We're just asking for the rules to be followed. I really appreciate the tone of the document as well. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Trustee. Trustee Kaile? Trustee Lindsay, you want to? Okay, go ahead, please.
I too want to mahalo advocacy for the very well-written testimony. I was really impressed. And I also want to mahalo our kanaka that is watching us today for coming out in droves. There were hundreds of them that day. And it just goes to show the love they have for our aina. And I so appreciate seeing them come out, all kinds of walks of life, just sitting around the Board of Land and Natural Resources concrete and waiting for their time to testify. So mahalo to them too for supporting what we consider so important, which is our aina. Mahalo.
Well said, mahalo. Trustee Kaile?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Summer, for that comprehensive update. A couple of things, Chair, and just for our trustees, you know, when the EIS was, when the EIS was published and was finalized, you know, most of everyone were provided electronic copies of the links. We immediately, working with advocacy, drafted a letter, sent it to U.S. Army Garrison Hawaii and the applicant, and requested that OHA receive full copies, physical copies of the EIS, which we did. And next to summer is volume 1 of what is 3 volumes that is probably 2 feet high. It's in our board suite. Anyone can see it, our beneficiaries, our staff. It's extremely, it's deep, it's comprehensive, but there's a lot of really good information in that. And so that was one thing that we did, and the Army obliged and hand delivered it here to OHA for us. Just for everyone's awareness, we're going to go through this all over again very, very soon, because on May 23rd, the Puamoho, Makua, and Kahuku EIS, which is all one EIS, is going to be finalized and delivered to the Board of Land and Natural Resources. That will then trigger another 30-day timeline, both NEPA and HEPA. We've already requested a physical copy of that to be delivered to OHA as soon as it's published. And our beneficiaries, including OHA, will go through this again, probably sometime in June. And so for our beneficiaries, that's important if you're watching. There's been recent articles after this meeting, or after the board's meeting, about what are the next steps. And Summer, I had a question for you as an environmental attorney. One of the things that they've been talking about is a possible land exchange for these Pōhakuloa lands. If the federal government desired to exchange certain lands within their inventory on any island for Pōhakuloa, would that require the federal government to do a new EIS or a new 343 section, 106 type of environmental studies? I'm imagining if they had to do one for this administrative action, just for the application to apply for a new lease, that if you wanted to exchange lands, that would require an entirely new EIS. And the only reason I ask is because these leases are expiring in 2029. We know how long this last one took. And so I'm just wondering what would be those next steps if that was the next course of action for the military and the state and the congressional delegation.
Yeah. So bright legal minds are talking about that very particular question, and there is some ambiguity in the law right now. I think HRS 171-50 governs land exchanges, and so people are deep in researching that. It makes practical, reasonable sense that a land exchange would trigger another opportunity for not only consultation but an impact assessment, and then another opportunity for public comments. I think that part of the lesson here too is that if for whatever reason agencies determine or other institutions determine that they have the ability to bypass that kind of prudent land stewardship measure, that the coalescing around being responsive to this particular issue, no different from the coalescing around being responsive to the military lease extensions that are coming up or expiring soon and going to have their own EIS, that the community and that OHA stand ready to be responsive to that moment. But your question specifically, it literally was on a text chain today about the ambiguities involved in that, but that everyone who cares deeply about Aina, everyone who responsibly stewards Aina, would necessarily think that value should be a proposition followed or a principle followed in the land exchange process. I will also say, though, that even talking about land exchange at all should be something that the community has input from the outset. It is not it's not so easy to have this one-for-one kind of exchange without understanding the deep pilina that people from Moku o Keawe have to the Pōhakuloa lands and their genealogical and cultural and lineal descendancy to that. No different from the people in Makua who have long advocated for, protection of their Aina. One potential, there are benefits to having these kind of land exchanges because again, the Army's larger footprint extends beyond any one specific place, and the impacts are particularly injurious across a number of different demographic considerations. But it's also a way to divide community as well. You can imagine communities being pitted against one another if they feel as though that land exchange doesn't speak to all the equities and all the considerations very important to them. So I think as we navigate the conversation, we have to do so mindful and always sort of aligned, or at least informed by and informing transparently externally with all of our stakeholders and all of our beneficiaries.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify what I said earlier. We expect the next EIS to be published in the environmental notice on May 23rd. That's when the next environmental notice on the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development will be published, and we expect that to be then. So we're on the lookout for that.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple more and then we'll be wrapping up this conversation, but we'll start with Trustee Akaka and then Trustee Lindsay.
Mahalo. Mahalo for sharing that summary. I also wanted to mahalo our people for coming out and bringing their voices forward to share what we all can agree on and what that kuleana looks like. And I also wanted to talk more on what summary you're talking about regarding transfer of lands and so forth. I think what this brings us to is to advocacy and education, given that the military is currently on about quarter of our Hawaiian lands, 25%, that's a very, very large surface space. That's not even including our waters. It's important that we provide the training for them and the education so that they know how to do better. When you know better, you do better theoretically. And I think the Native Hawaiian law training that we provide to the legislators and to the community, that we really should make it available to the Department of Defense, military, Army, all of those that are working and reside here, that they have that. And the ones that are a part of these conversations, that they're equipped with that, so that it makes it easier for us to do our job as well. But for it always to be known that it is constitutionally mandated whenever it comes to our Native Hawaiian, Crown and government lands of our Hawaiian Kingdom, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs must always be consulted with, because we represent our Native Hawaiian people. We are the governing body to do that. And we need to be that voice of reason to represent our people whenever it comes to our lands. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Thank you for that. And finally, Trustee Hulu.
Mahalo. I just wanted to remind people about this, that there are procedures on the federal level that can hurt us, and that is that they can condemn our land and take it anyway. And that is a fact that was discussed on TV by Congress Lady Jill Tokuda, and also the governor, acknowledging that that is a possibility. So we need to be maka'ala and watch this very carefully and make sure our people speak up. Mahalo.
You got one more thought? Okay.
Just to further that, Mana'o. So I think maybe Summer, you can give more context to this, but it's not exactly as the governor had described on the news the other morning. I think we have experienced our people, our citizens, where the land was, it was conveyed over to the military, and it's easier for that to be done by private citizens, by private owners. But for it to be under this corpus, I would imagine it would take an act of Congress, as well as certain executive orders, and for certain levels of the military to even open that conversation. But it's not as easy as what the governor was talking about. And I think Representative Tokuda did a really good job in rebuttal to that in that same news publication. Yeah.
Mahalo for that. Anything else, trustees? If not, Summer, thank you. It's very curious that there's even something called a final environmental impact statement. I don't think anything's final. Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate so much. Yes, sir. Yes, please. Is this with regard to the Pōhakuloa? Okay. Pardon me?
Community concerns.
Oh, community concerns. Yeah, okay. No, go ahead, please. And then introduce yourself, sir. We're into community concerns right now.
Okay, mahalo for the agenda change. Tom Lenchenko, Kukaave, Aha Ula, Kukani Loko, Wahewa, Place Everlasting. It was very interesting that I received this written invitation to come to this meeting. And I was somewhat scattered where I only saw Pōhakuloa on the agenda, where it was brought up by Chair Kahele that it is inclusive of other lands that the Army own. The Army is not the only ones. No, you get the whole Department of Defense that's involved in this issue. But the Wahiawa lands are important too. And the recommendation from our family was to convey any of the lands that are subject to the 2029 retention program. Okay, because once you do that, it opens the avenue to everything else. Because if you look at our history, the Navy failed at Koholave for its cleanup. Yeah, they did just on surface thing. The last 25 years, I'm up in Schofield trying to have them reassess the value of cleaning up their property, which is actually our homeland. Yeah, so the issue that is most important, there are laws, you know, the Constitution, Article 6, Supremacy Clause number 2. You know, if there's a treaty in place, that is the law of the land. And if we understand correctly, in 1826, Kauai had a treaty with John Quincy Adams, yeah? And that was for amity and commerce at that time. And imagine, he was just 9 years old, maybe 10, 11, but that is important. 1849, 1850, he readdressed that treaty in what was known as the Treaty of Amity, Commerce, Navigation, and Extradition. Of course, the Congress drew out the extradition part and it became the law of the land till today. And this needs to be understood and managed correctly. There is no exchange of properties. That is out the door, yeah. As far as our family is concerned with the Wahiawa lands, but it is inclusive of all the land because you go under the water, we're still connected to each other. So there is not a separation. It's just because the part that's sticking up out of the ocean is of not concern. Yeah, but for us, it is important that if you can follow the rule of law, be explicit at what you do. I am very impressed by what staff did in making this recommendation. This is important. That's why I came here like, wow, how am I going to speak to this? But everybody is already aware. So May 23rd is very significant because they come into Waiwa, like they did with the landfill, and we had to shut them down. Yeah, because it is important to understand who we are and whose child we are. This is significant to the genealogies that protect us forever. Yeah, and there is no case law that can affect our genealogy because we were here first and we will always be here. Yeah, so I am very appreciative of what this committee and the Board of Trustees does in order to protect our Aina, because this is all we get. We're the only Hawaiians in the world, and this is our land. So you're going to challenge me, I'm going to challenge you too, by law. So I hope, you know, we're successful in this and we stop and deter any kind of notion to actually trade land. Come on, give me a break. I have no land to trade already. I'm sitting on occupied property through usurpation in 1893. So we need to format this thing and be responsible as Hawaiians, not just to the future, but to the ones that are here today. Yeah, it is significant right now. And I appreciate once again that you give me this opportunity to speak on behalf of our families of Waiawa, Place Everlasting. Mahalo.
Mahalo to you too. And Mr. Lenchenko, it's important that you are here because you want to say something, sir? Okay, I just wanted to acknowledge you because I was going to do that anyway in announcements. because we just won a Pele Award, which is excellence in advertising. And it's 30 seconds talking about Kukani Loco. So mahalo for what you do. Appreciate you coming up. Okay, please, sir, come. And we're already going into our second meeting, but sorry, Chair Souza. Okay. Please come forward, state your name and your concern.
Hello, my name is Matthew Kahopi, born and raised in the North Kohala on the Big Island. I've been involved with PTA for a while. I was on the head instructor of Biogenesis Pacific on Kaho'olawe as the heavy equipment operator to help to understand and use the EM61 to identify metal from the surface 4,000 feet underground. We had used the satellite to identify all the metals on the surface with Jerry Lamb, as I was working for, and Biogenesis Pacific, and EODs, retirees from Navy. With this expertise that we've been doing, it's not easy just to go and retrieve this ordnance. Not all the minerals is the same. We have dirt, we have lava, we have blue rock. This ordnance is very sensitive by vibrations by the Marines ordnance. It's need to be respected, and the military does not do the cleanup. There are soldiers to swing to protect your interests and your government in Hawaii. And the EIS is very important because they really don't know our Aina. They're not from here. They just signed a contract. But they was told by the United States presidents, head commander, to be here to protect our Aina. And in Hawaii, we need two things in Hawaii. We need money and we need military to protect our country. Whatever happened in the 1800s, for God, please help everyone. Today, this is not the people that did the wrong in the military. And I support the military because I knew what UXO was all about. It was brought to my attention in the early 90s to take the contract, the 400 million. I refused to because I wasn't ready at that time. I was young, but I was working in operators engineering, highly recommended in construction. And I stopped working construction in 2017 because I found out with all these documents that I was researching, I was desecrating my own Aina. And not only that, I was destroying with these big bulldozers, D12s, 475, Komatsu. It's wrong for me when I know the truth. At that time, I didn't know. We just followed the money, the currency, the Federal Reserve notes. That is very important. That is bank contracts. You cannot use that to buy gold. It backs up gold. And that's why it's so hard to be sovereign and not being the lineal descendants to Abner Paki and Lilio Kalani. As the Minister of Interior, with all these documents to the Land Court Award, to the Land Commission Awards, to the Konehikis, to the Raw Patents, to the Great Mahele, 177 names, that this is their grandparents that donated their service to make decisions for the king. Oikioli, Lilio Kalani. Yeah, those 177 names, they still existed. They did not know that their grandparents donated their free services to help the Privy Council and the House of Noble for the king to make his right decision. As I do all this research over 30 years to treaties, 1826, to my great-grandparents, Kahumanu, Wapili, all the way down to Lilio Kalani, Abner Paki, as the father, married to Punia. My great-grandparents is my dad, all the way to Kanika Hikili. As I share this research of the military on PTA, and I don't want to get off track. We can talk about this later. I know you are very, very busy. The military hire university to go out and do research. And they are hired to protect all the EVs and your human remains. They're not the expertise that the Hawaiian people Kanaka Maoli. Yeah. To speak on their behalf because they did not give them anyone their consent. Yeah. To use Crown land for adverse possession. And I refer back to Brother Kai, the retention manual. The retention manual, it changes every 2 years on new commanders. Every year it changes on the commander. And it's up to the commander to protect whatever environmental service to the aquifer, to the la'au lapa'au, your plants, your native Hawaiian plants, your birds, your navigation, yeah, and the airspace to the archipelago, 1,523 nautical miles, 126 islands in the Pacific Rim that are located for the Hawaiian Kingdom government to all our kanaka. Yeah. Thank you.
Mahalo. Thank you for coming, because rarely do we get a chance to speak to somebody who actually worked the land on Kaho'olawe. Appreciate that. Everyone, we want to thank you all for your participation in today's meeting. We're about to finish off. Unless there's anything else, any other announcements? Chair? Okay, we have a movement for adjournment, a second by, okay. Any discussion about this?
I just wanted to make some announcements.
Or you want to make another announcement?
Yeah.
Just wait till the next meeting? No?
It could, but I mean, I think it would fall under beneficiary. It'll be quick, very quick,
Very quick.
very quick.
Go ahead.
Mahalo. I just wanted to share with everyone regarding the participation in the neighborhood board meetings that we've had on Oahu. So myself, along with my team, Nathan and Mark, and various administration have been with us. So we started off last week at Waianae Coast Neighborhood Board, the Kuli'o'o Kalani'iki Neighborhood Board, Ko'olauloa Neighborhood Board. And then this Monday, we were at Waimanalo Neighborhood Board, which Ku'ike is the vice chair for. And then we today have the Kahalu'u Neighborhood Board, tomorrow the Kaneohe and the Makiki Tantalus Neighborhood Board. So it's been a very a full schedule in the evening times. But I just wanted to share as well. I'm hoping that we can talk more fully about it, some of the feedback that we've received. But they have been very thankful in our participation and inviting us to be a mainstay and maybe having 3-minute announcements, whether virtually or in person.
That's good. That's about as ground game as you're gonna get.
Yeah, they're very thankful.
Neighborhood board. Mahalo. Mahalo for that. Okay, we've got a motion on the table to adjourn. Any other discussion? Seeing none? Go ahead, Leanne.
Trustee Ahuna,
Aye.
Trustee Akaka, Trustee Akina,
Aye.
Trustee Alapa. Yes. Trustee Kahele.
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay, Trustee Souza.
Aye.
Trustee Wahe'e,
Yes.
Chair Galataria.
Right?
Motion passes unanimous.
Mahalo. Don't go too far, everybody. We've got a quick turnaround for the next meeting, okay?